All right, let's get right into it. Today we're talking about something you hear about all the time, berries and their connection to cancer. There's a lot of noise out there, so our job is to cut right through it and look at what the actual science has to say. We're going to separate the real facts from the hype. I mean, it's a really powerful question, right? The idea that something you can just buy at the grocery store, something so simple, could actually play a role in a disease as complex as cancer? Well, it's something a lot of us are really hoping for. But what's the real story? Okay, and right up front, this is the most important thing we're going to say today. So let's be absolutely 100% clear on this. As of right now, there is zero direct proof from human trials that berries or anything in them can treat or cure cancer, period. End of story.
So, you might be asking, well, why are we even talking about this then? Because while we don't have that direct proof, what we do have is a trail of really compelling indirect clues. The science shows that compounds in berries can affect some of the biological pathways that cancer uses to grow. And that is the fascinating story we're going to dig into.
So let's take an honest look at what that promise really is, based on the science we have right now. So what do I even mean by indirect evidence? Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a detective case. We don't have the smoking gun or the direct confession, but what we do have is a whole lot of circumstantial evidence, fingerprints, motives, timelines, that all start to point in a very specific direction. In this case, the clues are how berries affect things we know are tied to cancer, like inflammation or how our genes behave. And speaking of that evidence, the strongest set of clues we have in humans actually comes from research on colorectal cancer. So let's see what the detectives found.
This is where it gets really interesting, because we're talking about actual human studies now. Researchers had colorectal cancer patients drink a daily shake made with black raspberry powder. And what they found was pretty remarkable. At a genetic level, they saw tumor suppressor genes, think of these as the body's natural emergency brakes for cancer, get switched back on. They also saw a drop in inflammation signals in the blood and positive changes in the way cells were programmed to die off, a process called apoptosis. These aren't just vague ideas. These are measurable biological changes.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Here's a quote directly from the journal Clinical Cancer Research. They concluded that black raspberries have the ability to modulate biomarkers of tumor development. What that means in plain English is that they can actually influence the signals and pathways that tumors use to grow, especially inside the digestive system where they make the most direct contact. Okay, so we're seeing these effects in one area, but how does that connect to the bigger picture of how cancer behaves throughout the body? This is where we start connecting those indirect dots. One of the biggest challenges with cancer is when it spreads. That's called metastasis. It's the process that turns a local problem into a body-wide one, and it's something we're desperately trying to figure out how to stop. And here's one of the sneaky tricks cancer cells use to do it. They can actually grab onto our own blood platelets and form a little shield around themselves. It's like they're wearing a disguise, allowing them to travel through the bloodstream without getting spotted by our immune system. Which brings us to this number, minus 29%. What is that? Well, in one human study where people took a wild bilberry supplement, researchers saw a 29% drop in something called platelet aggregation. That's just the scientific way of saying how sticky their platelets were. And here's why that matters. If your platelets are less sticky, it might be a lot harder for those traveling cancer cells to build that little disguise. This is another really powerful indirect clue. It suggests that berries might help make the body a tougher place for cancer to spread. And it's not just about platelets. People often call chronic inflammation the fuel that feeds the cancer fire. Well, this chart here shows that purified compounds from berries were able to significantly lower two major inflammation signals in the body, C-reactive protein and TNF-alpha. So it's like turning down the gas on that fire. It's another indirect way that berries might make the body's environment less friendly to cancer. So what is it inside these berries that's actually doing all this? Let's take a look at the active compounds. The real stars of the show here are called anthocyanins. These are the natural pigments that give berries those beautiful deep blues, purples, and reds. But they're way more than just color. They are incredibly powerful antioxidants, and they're the main thing scientists are looking at in all this research. And what's really cool is that they're not all the same. This table shows that different types of anthocyanins have different specialties. The kind you find in blueberries, for example, are great for cholesterol and glucose, while the ones in blackberries have their own strengths. The big takeaway here? Variety is key. Eating different kinds of berries gives you a wider range of these beneficial compounds. So, all this science is great, but it brings us to the most important question. How do we actually use this information in a smart, responsible way?
Okay, we have to talk about dosage because this is so important. A lot of these studies are using highly concentrated supplements, like 320 milligrams a day. Now, to get that same amount from just eating food, one study estimated you'd need the equivalent of about 2 cups of fresh blueberries every single day. So the point is, the doses used in research are often way higher than what you'd get from just casually eating a few berries.
So, here's a responsible way to think about it. Step 1, berries are a supportive food. They are not a treatment. Step 2, eat a variety, blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, to get all those different compounds. 3, make them part of a broader, healthy diet. And 4, and this is the most critical step of all, you must discuss any dietary plan with your oncologist. They know your specific situation and can give you the best advice. So let's just hammer home the big takeaways one more time. First, there is no direct proof that berries cure cancer. Second, the strongest human evidence we have is that they can create positive changes in biomarkers for colorectal cancer. Third, the indirect clues, like reducing inflammation and making platelets less sticky, are really compelling. And finally, berries are a fantastic part of a complementary plan, something you do alongside your medical treatment, never as a replacement for it.
So, after hearing all of this, what is the number one most important thing you can do with this information?
It's this. Understand that this information isn't medical advice. The whole point is to empower you, to give you the language and the science to have a better, more informed conversation with your doctor. The goal is to be an active partner with your oncologist, building a plan that uses proven medical treatments first, and then supporting that plan with smart, science-backed complementary strategies. Thank you so much for joining me.